Welcome to our audience for this session on AI Beyond the Hype, the goal of which is to demystify the application of Gen AI by discussing with companies who are delivering now to their clients measurable tangibles. We'll also use the opportunity in what should be no more than 30 minutes to get their views on the AI platforms vying for market dominance, which has taken up the vast majority of the media's attention, of course. But in the real world, I think we want to focus here today with Stuart Clarke, who's the CEO of Blackdot Solutions. Welcome, Stuart, to find out what he's doing and his business is doing to help their, in some cases, extremely large clients to weave a path through the hype to something more real and deliverable. Before we do that, a quick introduction to myself. My name's John O'Connell. I'm Executive Chairman and founder of Scale Up Group. Scale Up Group obtains growth funding for high-tech businesses, typically Series A of £3 to £5 million upwards, and we also co-invest to show we really believe in our clients. And so far, so good. And I'm delighted to report that Stuart's company closed their funding round earlier this year, which is good. So congratulations to you, Stuart. So thank you very much for being willing to share your experiences from the front line, so to speak. Before we get into the kind of the detail of AI, perhaps you introduce yourself and your company and a little bit about your background too, please.
Sure, absolutely. Hello everyone. My name is Stuart Clarke, CEO of Blackdot, and I guess I have overall responsibility for our innovation, AI, and our product strategy. My background is, I have a technical background. I started my career as an investigator, and I spent roughly 10 years doing investigations, and I've spent the last 11 or 12 years building investigation technology. So Blackdot, we are a SaaS company. We are the creators of what we believe is a leading OSINT investigative analytics platform called Videris. What Videris does for our customers is it is illuminating intelligence in open source data. So our platform has been designed and it really empowers investigators across banking, across the government domain, across corporations to securely collect publicly available data. So when we say publicly available data, we're talking about corporate records, publicly available social media, dark web, adverse media, and we're hoovering up all of this unstructured content, and we automatically map out networks of people and businesses. And our role in Videris's role is to accelerate investigators' understanding of risk so that they can ultimately make better decisions, but also support broader compliance efforts, whether they be a bank or a corporation. So that's what Videris is doing, and naturally we make use of lots of different technologies to support our customers in doing so.
Thanks, Stuart. Now I know that you have some extremely large clients, particularly in the finance world and also in government, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I guess they're getting besieged by being told AI is the answer. What's the problem? What's been your experience, and how long have you been helping them find tangible benefits?
Yeah, I think across our customer base, the customers are at very different stages in the journey. Universally, regardless of the domain, they're all thinking about AI. They're all hearing from technology vendors like ours that they need to embrace and use AI. But I think ultimately there's a sense of let's really get focused on the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah.
Before we start talking about AI and all the cleverness that it can bring. But I think for me, where we are trying to educate our customers is AI is it's hugely topical at the moment. There's a huge amount of activity. The pace of change is huge. but how we like to approach the topic is, so we think about AI from two perspectives: how we use AI in our business, and then how we use AI in our products. And I think for us to convince our customers that they should be embracing AI themselves, we have to very much showcase our own credentials and where we're leveraging AI technologies in our business, and ultimately where our product is leveraging AI and where it can deliver value. But I think for me, it ultimately comes down to focus on a problem, and then you then start to explore what technologies can assist with that problem,
Yeah.
and ultimately come to a suitable solution, really. Um, and
On that point, Stuart, sorry to interrupt, but so far, what have you found the most fruitful areas for using AI?
yeah, so I mean, we've been using AI in our product for some time. And I think this is what's been quite interesting in many respects. AI technology has been around for a long time as well. I mean, if you go back in the history books, you could say it was around in around Alan Turing's time. He developed the Turing test to figure out if machines could measure up to human intelligence. So it goes all the way back. But and for us, we've been using AI-based technologies for quite some time, and the adoption of that has been really positive.
Mm.
And when I say AI-based technologies, I'm talking very basic but yet powerful technologies like natural language processing. So technologies that are bringing structure to unstructured data. And this is a really powerful application for us and our customers because we are dealing with open source data, which is unstructured in its very nature. So to bring some structure to that data, technologies like natural language processing that can extract entities, so names, addresses, locations, that can help with an understanding of sentiment, deliver immediate value. They take this hugely complex unstructured repository and bring it some meaning and some understanding. So our customers have been very receptive to that. I would say universally, every single one of our customers just use technologies like that without thinking now. But the step change has been with the emergence of generative AI and the use of large language models. And I think we are still quite early in our journey there. We have some good solutions in the product, which we can talk to, which the adoption, I think, will be more positive in some areas than others because there's obvious path to value, the risk is low. And I think those two things, for me, when the risk is low and there's an obvious path to value, the adoption is much, much quicker.
That's very interesting. It touches upon what that Financial Times article described as, as you know, they categorized four areas based on the complexity, frequency, interconnectability, and cost of getting it wrong, i.e., as you just said, risk. And you've just emphasized the path to value and risk. If the path to value is obvious and the risk is low. And so what specifically, what sort of applications does that mean, as far as you're concerned?
Yeah, I would say we're in quite a luxury position in many respects because we're dealing with largely publicly available data. So, and when I say largely, we do help our customers understand internal data as well. But the vast majority of the data we are helping them with is open source. So that reduces the risk level quite considerably for us and for our customers. So where we are leveraging AI now and where it's been quite well received is one of our biggest problems is the volume of data. So the internet is our database in many respects, and it's huge. And as I mentioned, it's unstructured. So leveraging things like generative AI to summarize some of that content is one area which is proven to be incredibly valuable because
Mm.
generative AI technologies not only can they make sense of the huge volume of information, but we've also focused on orientating generative AI around a subject of interest. So using the technology, consume huge volumes of data and say, I'm interested in John O'Connell. I want to know risk about John O'Connell. So ground your generative AI model around that person and identifying risk around that person. And that immediate, like I say, the risk is low, it's public data. You can validate what you're being shown because all of the data is fully sourced. So you can go back and check where the data has come from. So it's augmenting what our users are doing. It's not replacing them. It's making them far more effective. But it really is seen as an extension of their capabilities. So they can spend less time hoovering up data and trying to make sense of it, and more time understanding the output and making decisions, and which is ultimately where they need to spend the time. They shouldn't be hoovering up information. So Gen AI
To give our audience a little bit more understanding of what you do. So, I mean, what decisions are they aiming to make as a result of this? So, you're using Gen AI to make it more comprehensive and quicker. Then what happens as far as they're concerned? I mean,
yes,
let's stick with John O'Connell as your example. So, if the outcome is looks like he's got more connections than is natural, and therefore that should we be taking this person on as a client? Is that the sort of thing that they're deciding?
yeah. I mean, if we put ourselves in the banking shoes for a moment, and you are going to be onboarded as a client, and there's maybe an amber flag attached to you. Some kind of compliance system is unsure if there's any risk. So yeah, in that scenario, our software would go out and it would gather any information about corporate holdings you might have, any shareholdings you might have, and who the other shareholders are in the businesses you're associated with as well. So map out that network. We then look to see, is there any risk anywhere in that network? And that could be simple things like, are you sanctioned? Are you attached to someone who might be sanctioned? So you're sanctioned by extension. Do you own products that are sanctioned? But then we'll also look at adverse news. Is there any negative news about you or anyone that you're attached to or involved in? And we'll also look at the structure of some of those companies. Are you, for example, generating lots of companies, dissolving them very quickly? Do you have layered ownership models in place? Do you have lots of offshore companies, for example? All of this information is public, but there's a lot of it, particularly when you're dealing with organized criminals who are trying to mask what they are doing. They will build out a shell company network. They will build out front companies to try and obscure what they're doing, which may be something such as money laundering, which is obviously a very common example. So the generative AI summaries will gather up all of that information and distill it down into a summary of, we've detected there's unusual, as you say, unusual amounts of corporate connections here. There is a connection to a ship, for example, that's been sanctioned. There is historic adverse news related to a case some years ago, which indicates some kind of financial instability or trouble. So here's all of the information condensed down into 2 paragraphs. Here's I got all of the information from. We think John has a high risk of financial crime, and that's the output. So the investigator can then spend time validating that output.
And in
Rather than
some
going and
cases, could that lead to criminal investigation, or is it more we're not going to take on this person as a client?
In the banking sector, typically it would be just, we're not going to take this customer on as a client. In government, the use cases are different again. Government clients are often working in border protection,
Right.
serious and organized crime use cases. Often those take on more of an intelligence gathering ethos rather than an evidential approach, so that the burden of proof is a little bit lower. But I think I increasingly feel that the role of the AI will play in producing data that could be used for evidential purposes is going to be something that comes under increasing scrutiny, because the volume of data is never going to go away.
Mm.
Volume of criminal activity is sadly going up. So it's imperative that we start to learn how these systems work, how they make decisions. Black box systems is really not going to work in this scenario. So we need systems that you can understand the decision making, you can trace the decision making back, and have confidence in what you're being shown. And I think that's going to be quite an interesting shift in particularly law enforcement, where they're having to really think about how to use such technologies.
Yeah, and I guess thinking about that is that there's always a danger, isn't it, that criminal fraternity um, are one or two steps ahead of those who are trying to find them. Um, you know, regrettably, in many cases, I guess those criminals are getting more money than those who are paid to find them. So hopefully, technology might balance up this uh, kind of competition between one side and the other, in effect. Because what you've described, I know you can already do, but your point you're making is that you're augmenting it now, and you can do more of it and quicker with
Yes,
Gen AI than before.
exactly.
Yeah,
And we have plans to do even more to leverage large language models and build risk-centric large language models.
right.
We are in the somewhat luxury position that we've rebuilt our platform. It's a native SaaS platform. So we can start to benefit from some of the technologies. You mentioned the Financial Times article.
Yeah,
And I think one of the points on there is interconnectability.
yes,
This is whenever people start talking about where they can use AI, I think this is, for me, one of the bigger topics that needs to be really thought out, because if the data is fragmented and you're also running legacy architecture, you are unfortunately going to get left behind quite quickly.
mm,
And I think AI is very good at discrete tasks. It is getting better at complex undertakings, but for AI to be effective, all of the data needs to talk to each other, ideally.
mm,
Um, and it will look at that data in its entirety, and it will make a decision. Now, if the data is in fragmented systems, if some of those systems are on premise and some of those systems are in the cloud, it's just completely limited in terms of its capability. And I think while much of the talk is around AI, I think the acceleration towards SaaS-based technologies is happening in parallel,
yeah,
and almost needs to happen first in some regard, because banks in particular, I think, are well known for running legacy architecture.
yes,
They are going to miss out on the opportunities afforded by some of the AI technologies out there today, like generative AI, because a lot of their data is sitting on these legacy systems that's not connected in any way, shape, or form. So I, while the emphasis is on AI and where it delivers value, I think there's steps that need to happen before, such as adoption of SaaS, such as making sure all our systems are talking to each other, which I think was referenced in the article. Those things have to happen first, for me, ultimately, to reduce the cost of getting it wrong. I
yes,
think the chance of
yes,
it going wrong is much greater when you are trying to almost cobble together a solution with legacy systems, new technologies. It becomes a bit of a mixed bag, and it's not always going to be effective.
but what you've identified there, and I entirely get it, is that the larger the organizations, the longer it's been in business, the harder it is going to be for them to fully embrace the benefits of Gen AI, because they can't overnight, as it were, dispose of all their massive investment and of on-premise computing.
Exactly.
Hmm,
Yeah, it's for me, it's one of the biggest challenges to overcome over the next few years. I think we can talk about the barriers to AI adoption, data privacy, trust in the models. These are all barriers, but I think ultimately, if data's sitting in legacy systems, and it is sadly some of the biggest organizations that suffer most from this because they've been around for
Yeah.
so long, they are going to miss the opportunities. Whereas you look at challenger banks, they can move so much more quickly because they grew up on SaaS.
Yeah.
Their data is all centrally stored. It's all the information governance is watertight, really. They've got over the barrier of taking sensitive data and putting it in the cloud. They've got robust data privacy procedures and policies in place so that they ultimately can benefit from the opportunity that's ahead of them the most.
Yeah. No, Stuart, getting down to sort of brass tacks, as it were, regarding your company, much of what you describe, maybe an audience will be thinking, well, okay, so Gen AI platforms can do this. What added value does Videris have to kind of justify yourselves, putting it bluntly?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, look, you look at the big tech players, Microsoft, OpenAI, Anthropic. Um, these guys are huge, and the models that they're building are incredibly powerful. I think for me, there's an opportunity now for businesses like Blackdot where they're building generalized platforms, and they have to build a generalized platform to maximize their opportunity. So they don't really have a focus on solving narrow, specific problems themselves. They've created these platforms that allow businesses like ours and many others to basically bring their domain knowledge, bring their understanding of a customer, bring their understanding of the customer's problem, and leverage these technologies to create a better solution. And that's where we add value. We have a deep understanding of our customers' problems, their use cases, whether they be a bank or an analyst from a government agency. We know the problems they're trying to understand. We know the problems they're trying to solve, and we also we have a good understanding of how we can apply the technologies that are available to us to solve those problems. So for me, the next 1 to 3 years, I would say, are quite exciting for companies like ours, where we can leverage these platforms, bring a bit of focus to what they're doing, bring a bit of specialist capability, and build out verticalized solutions on top of an OpenAI or an Anthropic that ultimately are delivering problems to customers. So that's where we can add value.
So you're one of my favorite words here. You have the opportunity to be a pathfinder for such organizations. You've identified this significant technology challenge of having legacy systems, but what you're also emphasizing is it's your knowledge of the client's business, which where you can really add value and convert that into a tangible benefit. Have you yet been able to identify, the quantum of benefits? Any sense of that? Comparing before they adopted and after they adopted?
At the moment, we haven't got huge amounts of data. We know it's improving things, but we don't have specific, like we've taken. So we know by adopting technologies like Videris, you go from like 5x efficiencies, sometimes even greater than that. So what we're working on now is, as you roll out feature X, feature Y, does that 5x become 6x or 7x or 10x?
Okay.
We haven't got tangible metrics on that yet, but we are working to get those. It was important for us, actually, and I think this is important for anyone on this journey. Set out with a clear problem of what you're trying to solve, but then also define what success looks like. Before you start talking about, I'm going to use Claude to do X, Y, and Z. Because then you can come back and see, has value been delivered? And we're on that journey now. We're on that feedback loop of, where is this working well? Where is this not working as effectively, and we can ultimately make those tweaks.
Yeah, and discussing that point only yesterday with someone, I think there must be a great temptation to, if you're heading a large corporate in this area, to say, well, these Gen AI platforms are changing so fast, we'll do nothing. So I think your point is well made that if there are issues and problems which have to be solved like now, just solve them now. Don't get blinded by what may be around the corner later with yet a new version of Anthropic or what have you. On that point, do you have any thoughts or comments yet on the respective merits of these competing AI platforms?
Yeah, look, I think when you look at the major players, Anthropic, OpenAI, they're all moving at different paces. I think there's a different one leading every day in many respects.
Yeah.
I think ultimately those big players will win the race. Microsoft, Google, AWS, etc. I think they'll continue to assert their dominance. Um, I think where Microsoft have an advantage is they have access to so much information. Like the corporate estate lives inside of Microsoft's environment now. Everyone's running Office 365 and Azure, and I think they will ultimately probably gain a bit of an advantage around corporate use cases and operational type use cases. Whereas I think the likes of OpenAI and Anthropic might look to embed themselves inside of more technology projects like ours, where they maybe can step away from an operational business type use case more towards partnering with smaller software companies to solve very specific problems. So I feel we may see a bit of a split in the next few years where Microsoft, Google, they focus on the corporate estate and they'll do very well there. Whereas some of these emerging players, they're still relatively new in the field. They're quite agile, and I think they may split towards partnering with smaller, medium-sized technology companies and embedding themselves inside of those technologies.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the sums being invested are just eye-watering, aren't they? And certainly from my perspective, can be very destabilizing when you're advising clients such as yourselves. On the one hand, they're hearing about billions being invested in AI, and the next minute you're being put through the ringer to get, I'm not decrying the numbers, but a few million and yet you're thinking, Sounds has just raised 50 billion or some sort of, and at ridiculous valuations. And I think the market is bifurcating as far as fundraising is concerned. There's the massive players on the one hand and everybody else on the other. So it's really the point you made earlier about, being the pathfinder and helping your clients now with real problems now. I think the same thing applies for anyone fundraising, is to focus on what benefits you're delivering to your client by knowing their business inside out. And also the point you've made, bridging the gap between legacy systems and SaaS ones, which is a real world issue, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's a big issue. And these issues are running in parallel, but they sometimes get forgotten in pursuit of something bigger, which they have to be dealt with, I think, quite quickly, I would say as well. If
just sort of wrapping up a little bit, Stuart, has it been helpful to the whole Gen AI revolution in your business, or has it actually slowed it down because people aren't sure what they should be doing, and therefore you're not getting the decisions you would get previously as quickly?
I think generally that every RFP we see now talks about AI, so I think there's been quite a big shift. I don't think we've seen any massive slowdown in terms of people are waiting for particular decisions. I think the contractual process is, I think, gain a bit more complexity. And this is something we think about quite carefully, because how many sub processes do you want to add into your business that are dealing with various different things? We've talked about 5 or 6 different big players in the AI space. Do you want all 5 or 6 of them available in your platform, and then they've all got to go through a vendor risk management process? So we're thinking quite carefully about the friction these things create as well. If bundling together too many bits of technology is not always a good thing.
No, I suppose that there's, the ideal world is you don't get locked into any one Gen AI platform. On the other hand, the points you've just made, remaining neutral, independent, adds a tremendous amount of complexity to any purchase decision, doesn't it?
It really does. And these are some of the details which I think take the most working out. I think building technology is easy. It's adopting it through these processes, which is key. But we're excited about these changes. We made big bets on our platform. We rewrote the platform a few years ago, so we're in a great position to capitalize on them.
Yeah.
I think for us, focus is key. Like the small wins, low hanging fruit, but we also have some pretty big goals of where we can add more value to more customers. So we are quite excited, and I think we're well placed to exploit the current situation and accelerate growth, guiding our customers through this kind of accelerated period of change, I would say.
And you've now got the funding as well to do it, right?
Indeed, yeah, indeed.
Brilliant. Thank you, Stuart. Any last thoughts before we close?
No, I mean, I think my message would really be, obviously, there's a lot changing right now. I think laser focus on the problem you're trying to solve with whatever technology, really, and think about the long-term view of how things will play out. So I'll take this opportunity as well to thank you, John, for not only the opportunity today, but helping us on our funding journey throughout last year. It was, as you say, we're in a good position now, and that's so it's been great to be able to work with the Scale Up Group.
Thanks, Stuart. You're very gracious, and we certainly enjoy working with yourselves for an excellent outcome. Stuart Clarke, CEO of Blackdot Solutions, really valuable stuff here, and I'm sure the audience will work on it and figure out how best it can help them. So thank you once again for sparing the time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well,